Hi, I'm Carolyn from Denver, and before I tell you my story, please like and subscribe to the channel. My dad has been saying that I was as fast as the buggy whip from the cradle, and he was afraid to leave one unattended even for a minute. And when he did, I immediately started, for example, dragging the neighbor's cat around by its tail, or got into the unlit fireplace and then wiped my small hands covered in soot on the snow-white curtains. And how much dirt I once brought into the house when I decided to arrange a spa for earthworms in the living room. I brought a whole bucket of them. But activities that required concentration and perseverance were not my forte. I seriously couldn't understand why people came up with boring textbooks in school. Every day, Dad tried to make me concentrate on studying, but it was all in vain. I didn't last a long time, and my dad simply got exhausted. It's not surprising that I was the last among my peers in terms of academic performance. And in the 3rd grade, I even failed the final English test. Although I tried my best, my dad was furious. He gave me a huge lecture saying that if everything stayed this way, a cleaning lady career awaited me after school. He strictly forbade me from telling anyone about my failure, especially our neighbor and my classmate Derek, whose dad was my dad's best friend. Well, not exactly a friend. Friendship was a disguise. In fact, they competed like arch enemies. Who gets paid more, whose car is cooler, and whose kid is smarter? The next day, when we were just leaving the house, my dad and I met Derek with his father, who started shamelessly boasting about his son's success with a sweet smile on his face. My Derek is a genius. He passed all the final tests with the highest score, and at the same time, he won the international championship in robotics. And at his age, in addition to his school workload, he studies advanced mathematics in his free time. Carolyn, dear, how were your final tests? Dad's friend asked me, even more sugary and sweet. I did well, I clumsily tried to lie, as my dad taught me. No, you didn't. Derek laughed evilly and stuck out his tongue, while his dad smiled cynically and rubbed his hands. I know you failed English. You're the worst in the class. Oh, what happened after? All night long, my dad scolded me and made me read the English grammar book to him. It was very tiring and frankly pointless. And then he nagged the life out of me, talking about how I should take my neighbor for a model in everything. He has a bright future, blah, 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 blah. The morning after a sleepless night, when I met Derek in class, I could scratch his eyes out, and I called him a sleazy snitch. In response, he called me stupid, and arrogantly added that when we grew up, he won't even hire me as a doorman in his company, where he'll be the big boss. Objectively, my rivalry with this nerd was unnatural from the very beginning, because Derek and I are so different, like the earth poles that should never meet. He was always wearing elegant suits and shiny polished shoes, and me, well, I was shabby, always dressed in sweatpants and dirty sneakers. He had everything in perfect order, his textbook stacked straightly on his desk, and I have huge piles of junk with all the necessary stuff, dried grasshoppers, a broken compass, and a bun half-eaten from last Thursday. And most importantly, Derek and I had different dreams. And if it wasn't for our father's weird friendship, the parallel lines would never have crossed, and we would not even notice each other. In the 9th grade, Derek began to fulfill his promise. He became the big boss. He created a new social network for teenagers, which in a matter of months became popular not only in the United States, but throughout the world. My classmates began to earn so much money that children of our age could not even imagine. Meanwhile, I was also pursuing my dreams. I created my own street dance group. We had no mercy for ourselves training and preparing for the national tournament. Perhaps dancing was the only thing that I really had interest in, and that I could do all day long. I couldn't say the same about my studies. I completely neglected my schoolwork, devoting myself entirely to preparing for the tournament, and I could actually fail my exams. My dad rang the alarm and forbade me to train, and it was difficult for me to understand his decision because dancing is my only chance to achieve something really worthwhile in life. Dad, come to your senses. I'm a dance group captain. Your stubbornness will waste not only my efforts, but also the gigantic amount of work of our entire team. You're depriving us all of our future. I hysterically tried to prove that he was wrong. Still, my dad was determined, and in his opinion, my future is very illusory in any case, if I get kicked out of school. But my team and I found a great way out of this mess. We decided to train at night in my garden. Once, when I was explaining something to the guys very emotionally, we saw that in the next door house in Derek's room, the light went on for a few moments. We turned down the volume and decided to ignore it. But what a horror it was when the next day, during our night training, we were blinded by spotlights. We saw our parents, led by an angry, like an evil dragon father. We were sent home and the next day to the principal's office. I've never had my life in such a mess. The principal was really yelling and threatened to expel everyone from school. To save the team, I took full responsibility for what had happened. The principal appreciated my courage and desire to protect my dance group as a captain. He softened, but came up with a sophisticated punishment for me. For 12 weeks, I had to be reading the textbooks around the clock without my favorite dancing and, as a result, pass all my exams with good grades. This seemed impossible to me. On the same day at school, I met Derek, who really shot up in the last few years. I attacked him and started hitting his chest with my fist. How could you? You ruined my life. You're sleazy and vile. Caroline, calm down. That night I heard you yelling at someone. I thought that something might threaten your safety, so I called my dad. I didn't think that he would act like this and set you all up. My neighbor was making excuses. The next day after school, I began to suffer through my punishment. In addition to regular studying in a stuffy classroom over a pile of textbooks that I couldn't concentrate on, I was desperate. When the door to the classroom opened, I expected to see the tutor assigned to me by the principal. But the fact that it was Derek coming to my temporary prison with a stack of books made me furious. "Hug!" I screamed and stamped my feet. I couldn't utter a word because of the raging feelings inside. Carolyn, please contain yourself and listen calmly for once. I'm sorry it happened this way, but there's no turning back now. Derek said in a very patronizing way. I found a way to really help you. Moreover, I'm the best tutor in the city, and it's pretty stupid of you to refuse the help of the only person who's offering it to you. And how would you do it? I asked curiously and a little more calmly. You called me stupid yourself. No, you're not stupid. I've been helping teenagers with their studies for a long time, and I know what I'm talking about. I'm not a doctor, but I noticed some specific features in your brain. Explaining this, my neighbor turned on his MacBook, opened the website, and gave me an article to read. I was shocked. The article described the symptoms of a disorder associated with a lack of concentration, everything I'd had since childhood. And after this discovery, I agreed to accept Derek's help. He developed a whole system to help me learn to concentrate and productively immerse myself in my studies. First, we began to divide our training into small time intervals. Derek allowed me to relax and switch my attention to something interesting, like a colorful video game, or he encouraged me in some way, giving me my favorite candy or turning on some music and allowing me to dance. We caught up with math and chemistry using drawings, handy objects, and exciting experiments. After just a couple of weeks, I realized that I was making great progress. Yes, such as I had never had in all 9 years of my studying. And when the English teacher gave me a good grade for my homework, I ran out of school after class, threw myself around Derek's neck, and just hung on to him. He looked embarrassed, but was very happy. But then his dad appeared, who came to pick up his son from school. He ran up to us, parted us, and started spitting with fury. Don't you dare touch my son. I know people like you are after his money. My Derek works this hard, not for you. My classmate began to make excuses and explained that the principal asked him to help me improve my studies. But I didn't want to listen to this unpleasant conversation anymore, and I simply left. I decided that it was beneath my dignity to stay next to this bore. Despite his father's negative reaction, Derek continued to help me study for my exams and sneak into my garden in the evenings to talk to me. To the indescribable delight of my dad, teachers, surprise, and my team's glee, I didn't fail the exams, and for the first time in all my school years, I passed them well. Late in the evening, I was waiting for Derek outside the house, and I was itching to tell him of my success. But that day, he came to me very gloomy. Carolyn, I knew you could do it, but I have bad news. We're moving to Las Vegas very soon. It's my dad's dream, so I'm buying a house for us there. All that's left is some formalities and signing the papers. But why? I asked softly, and my heart sank. You were planning on graduating high school here in Denver, and you promised to help me with my studies. I'm sure you can do it without me now, but I can't do otherwise, he said. and I saw so much pain in his eyes. At that moment, I decided that I wouldn't let my classmate go until he told me the whole truth. As it turned out, Derek's dad pours a lot of Derek's money down the drain in gambling, buying luxury items, and throwing luxurious parties. Las Vegas has more opportunities to live that fast, drunken life, and Derek can't argue with his father and agrees to everything just because he's adopted. Dad took me from the streets in rags, sick and hungry, gave me a roof over my head and an opportunity to study. I couldn't disobey him, my neighbor added sadly. But why? I was outraged. My dad also gave me everything, but he's not depriving me of the right to speak my mind and the opportunity to be heard. Moreover, he's not trying to make money on me and turn me into his slave. Derek didn't know what to say, but he didn't change his mind. And right after passing the exams, I returned to the dance floor and was preparing my team for the national tournament every evening. I worked hard and didn't even say goodbye to my neighbor. I thought that he was betraying himself and didn't want to look at it. And then the next day came. We lit up the dance floor so much that not only the audience but the judges gave us a standing ovation. Naturally, we took first place. The school principal was blowing dust off our challenge cup, giving interviews to journalists, and he even admitted that not expelling me was his best decision in terms of the educational institution prestige. But it was all in a blur because I saw Derek in the front row at the end of the performance. He shyly stood up and brought flowers to the dance floor. Carolyn, you helped me understand what really meant something to me in life. When my dad and I flew to Las Vegas, I realized that this meaning stayed here in Denver. And this meaning is you. When I decided to have a serious talk about this with my dad, he became furious. And he tried to force me to sign a contract to buy the house and write himself a check for a hefty sum of money. But at that moment, the scales fell from my eyes. You were so right. I didn't sign anything. Got on the first flight and here I am. And I managed to witness the beginning of your grandiose dance career. When you… Kiss her already! We suddenly heard the enthusiastic cheers of my dance group. Derek's cheeks flushed, but he didn't lose his head for a second. He hugged me tightly and kissed me passionately. And at that moment, I saw the stars.